Welcome back to the All Sorts Podcast. Today we're going deep into some pretty wild stuff. Giant sinkholes in China.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and get this. Some of them have ancient forests,
Yeah.
like deep inside them. I mean, it's like a hidden world.
Yeah. It's incredible to think about these ecosystems just evolving
Yeah.
in isolation like that, sometimes for millions of years.
Like a time capsule, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is.
And you know what's even crazier? These, they're called like heavenly pits in Mandarin, which is kind of fitting when you think about it.
Yeah.
So before we get into like the recent discoveries, can you tell us like what actually causes these things, these sinkholes?
Sure. It all comes down to the landscape. Southern China's famous for it. It's called karst topography.
Karst. Okay.
Yeah, it's all about rocks. Like limestone. That dissolve over time, rainwater is slightly acidic, so as it seeps into cracks, it basically eats away at the
So
limestone.
it's like
Yeah.
just like slow erosion, but underground.
Right. It creates these cavities, these huge spaces.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing that something like rain can carve out these massive underground spaces.
It's a process that takes a really long time, thousands of years usually.
Wow. So it's
Wow.
kind of like it's got slow motion drama,
Yeah.
but geological. It's happening over centuries. And then boom,
Yeah.
Sinkhole City.
Exactly.
And in the case of these Tiankang, the boom is pretty spectacular. Like I was reading about one that's deep enough to swallow, the St. Louis Arch.
Yeah, that's the one. Discovered in Guangxi back in May 2022. It's massive, 630 feet deep.
Wow. And it has 3 cave entrances, which
Actually is.
pretty nuts.
It is.
And then you know what's at the bottom? You mentioned it earlier.
Oh, yeah. The ancient forests.
Those forests. It's like something straight out of a Jules Verne novel.
Yeah.
These massive trees, over 130 feet tall,
Yeah.
just like crazy thick undergrowth.
It's like a jungle down there. You got it.
It really is wild.
I
And
got it.
because they're so isolated, it's like these sinkholes are like islands, but for biodiversity.
Right. That's a great way to put it. They've got all these unique species that have adapted
Yeah.
to this weird underground world.
Yeah. And that's why scientists love them so much.
Exactly. Each sinkhole is like a treasure chest
Ah.
full of potential new species, offering this like glimpse into how life evolves in these unique environments.
Like I read about these blind cave fish that have adapted to the darkness.
Oh, yeah. They're
And
fascinating.
it's incredible how life finds a way to thrive, even in these like seemingly impossible conditions.
It's remarkable.
What else are they finding down there?
Now, alongside the fish, there are insects, spiders, even some mammals,
Right.
that have made these sinkholes their home. They've adapted to the lack of sunlight, the strange temperatures, humidity, limited food sources.
It's a whole different world down there.
It is.
Not just about new species. These sinkholes can tell us a lot about our planet's history, too.
Absolutely. You've got layers of rock, fossils, pollen trapped in the sediment. It's all clues to help us understand past climates, geological events, even the movement of continents.
It's like each sinkhole is like a chapter in Earth's history, just waiting to be read.
That's a great way to think about it.
It makes you realize how much we still don't know about our own planet, even in the 21st century. It's kind of humbling.
It is.
But I'm curious, what's it like exploring these environments? It can't be easy, rappelling down hundreds of feet into a dark, humid pit.
It's definitely not a walk in the park.
Yeah.
Researchers need specialized equipment, helmets, harnesses, ropes, headlamps, the whole shebang. And they have to be so careful not to disturb the ecosystem.
It's like a mix of extreme sports and science.
Yeah, you could say that.
But the rewards are huge, right?
They are. Each expedition could uncover a new species, new insights into evolution, maybe even knowledge that could help us tackle climate change.
Speaking of climate change,
Yeah.
we know that karst landscapes are vulnerable to pollution
Right.
because of their underground water system.
Yeah, exactly.
So how does that play out in these sinkholes?
It's a big concern. Any pollutants that
Yeah.
enter the water system, whether it's runoff from farms or industrial waste, it can easily get into the sinkholes, affecting the water quality and endangering the ecosystems inside.
So even though these sinkholes seem remote and isolated, they're still connected to the wider environment.
Yeah.
And what happens on the surface definitely impacts these hidden worlds.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that everything is connected, and even small actions can have big consequences.
That's a good point. But I want to circle back to the recent discoveries. You mentioned that one of the coolest things about these sinkholes is that they sometimes reveal species that were thought to be extinct.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Can you tell us more about that?
Sure, let's take the Mangalacia aromatica, for example.
What is that? Is it like a plant?
It's a tree, a relative of the magnolia it was once. Really widespread, but now it's critically endangered because of habitat loss and overharvesting.
We found a healthy population thriving in that 630-foot deep sinkhole and gone free.
It's like the sinkhole became a refuge, shielding it from all the threats that were wiping it out in the outside world.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. It really shows how important these sinkholes are for protecting biodiversity, especially as the world changes so quickly.
A powerful example of how these hidden environments can play this crucial role in conservation, offering a lifeline to species that are struggling to survive.
You got it. And it makes you wonder what other treasures might be down there.
Yeah, like other plants or even animals. Maybe holding secrets too? I don't know. Survival or even medical breakthroughs? You never know.
That's the exciting part.
Right. Speaking of treasures, we talked a bit about the cultural side of things earlier. Can you tell us more about how these sinkholes have been seen by local communities?
Sure. For centuries, these giant, mist-shrouded sinkholes have had this special place. In local folklore and traditions, imagine encountering one of these for the first time, this vast, shadowy opening in the earth. Yeah, it's easy to see how myths and legends would pop up. Like I'm picturing stories of mythical creatures living down there, or maybe gateways to other realms.
Exactly. Some cultures saw them as entrances to the underworld, or places where spirits and deities lived.
It's like a mix of awe and fear,
Right. Sense of wonder, but also trepidation.
It's fascinating how these formations can shape the way people see their environment.
It really is.
Those beliefs, they could be so different depending on the culture.
They could. Some saw them as places of fear, while others saw them as sacred, places to make offerings or seek blessings from the spirits.
So it's not just the science, it's their cultural and spiritual value too.
It is.
It's a good reminder that our relationship with nature, it's complex and often very personal. And understanding those cultural perspectives can be really valuable for everyone, not just anthropologists,
That's right.
but scientists too.
That's right. Well, local knowledge and traditions can give scientists valuable insights, like stories about certain plants or animals in the sinkholes could lead to new discoveries, or clues about the history of these ecosystems.
Like science and culture working together to help us understand the world.
Yeah, each enriching our understanding in their own way.
It's a great example of how those two things can go hand in hand. But let's switch gears for a sec and talk about the future.
Okay, sounds good.
We know these sinkholes are threatened by pollution and deforestation. What are some of the other challenges?
Especially with climate change.
Climate change is a big one. It poses a real threat to these delicate ecosystems. Changes in rainfall patterns can mess up the water flow underground, potentially causing instability and even collapses.
So it's not just the pollution, it's the changing climate itself.
Right. And shifts in temperature and humidity can also affect that delicate balance that these species rely on.
It sounds like climate change could have this ripple effect, impacting everything from the physical structure to the life inside.
So what are we doing to protect these places for future generations?
Right. There's growing awareness of how important it is to conserve Chiangking, and there are efforts to protect them.
Like what? What are people doing?
Many sinkholes are now protected areas, limiting development and human activity.
That's great to hear. Anything else?
Research plays a big role. Scientists are studying them, figuring out the best strategies for conservation, and trying to understand how climate change will affect them.
Makes sense. What about tourism? Is there any talk about that?
Oh, yeah. There's a push for sustainable tourism, making sure people can experience them without causing damage.
So it's like a multi-pronged approach, combining protection, research, and responsible tourism.
Exactly. Recognizing that these sinkholes are more than just geological wonders. They're vital ecosystems that play a crucial role in biodiversity and the health of our planet.
It's really interesting because as we've been talking about these challenges, it strikes me that these sinkholes are like a microcosm of the bigger environmental problems we're facing as a global community.
Yeah. Pollution, deforestation, climate change, these issues go way beyond
just these sinkholes.
They do.
It's a good point. And like a reminder of how connected our planet is and how what might seem like an isolated event can actually have ripple effects.
Yeah.
You know, across huge distances and different ecosystems. It's like that saying, what affects one affects us all.
Exactly.
And it highlights the need to work together to tackle these problems, not just for these sinkholes, but for everyone, for current and future generations. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But let's take a step back from the doom and gloom for a second and focus on the exciting discoveries that these sinkholes offer. We've talked about new species, ancient ecosystems, but what about understanding the history of life on Earth? What can these subterranean time capsules tell us about the distant past?
They offer this unique window into the history of life they've preserved, species and genetic lineages that have vanished from the surrounding areas, so studying those species, and their DNA can give us amazing insights into how life evolved, how it adapted to different environments, and even how it survived past extinction events.
That's like solving a puzzle using clues.
Hidden in these sinkholes to reconstruct the evolutionary history of life on Earth.
And who knows what else we'll find as we keep exploring, maybe evidence of species we thought were long gone, or new branches on the tree of life.
The possibilities are endless.
It's pretty exciting to think that.
It is.
It's not just about the past.
Right. These sinkholes can also teach us valuable lessons for the future.
I'm intrigued. How so?
Well, the way life is adapted to these extreme environments, limited resources, perpetual darkness, all those challenges can give us insights into how life might adapt to our changing planet as we face climate change.
So it's like a natural experiment showing us the potential for resilience and adaptation.
In the face of adversity.
Maybe there are secrets hidden down there that could help us develop new technologies or approaches to dealing with environmental problems.
Yeah, like a lion cave fish. Navigate in the dark has inspired new sonar technology.
Oh, that's cool.
There's so much potential for biomimicry and innovation.
It's amazing how nature can inspire us in that way.
It is.
But beyond the science and the technology, I think these sinkholes also offer us something else, a sense of wonder and humility.
I agree. They challenge us to rethink what we think we know about life.
And where it can exist.
Right.
They show us how vast and mysterious the natural world truly is and how much we still have to learn.
There's so much we don't know or understand.
It's kind of humbling to think about it. We're up here thinking we're the big deal. And then there are these ecosystems thriving in isolation, completely oblivious to us. Like, we don't even matter.
It really puts things in perspective.
It really does. And it underlines the importance of humility and respect when it comes to nature. We're not the only ones here. And these sinkholes are a powerful reminder.
There.
We've covered so much ground in this conversation, from how they form to their cultural significance, the threats they face, and the incredible things we're learning from them.
Yeah, it's been a great discussion.
It has. And we've barely scratched the surface.
We haven't. The world of Qing, it's vast and mysterious, and I have a feeling we're just at the beginning of some really groundbreaking discovery.
I can't wait to see what the future holds. But for now, we got to take a quick break. But stick with us. When we come back, we'll wrap up our exploration of these incredible places.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to the All Sorts podcast. It's been a wild ride exploring these giant sinkholes.
It has. I mean, it's amazing how these seemingly hidden ecosystems have given us so much insight into the planet's history, the diversity of life, and even potential for future discoveries.
They're like a reminder that life finds a way to adapt and survive.
Yeah.
Even in the most unexpected places.
Right.
And speaking of unexpected, you mentioned a mystery before the break about how life got down there in the first place.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
I mean, we've been talking about how isolated these sinkhole ecosystems are, but that isolation makes you wonder.
How did life get there in the beginning?
Right, like those ancient trees. They didn't just poof.
Appear out of nowhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those blind cave fish. They didn't just evolve in a vacuum. So, how did they get there?
Well, there are a few theories. One is that some species adapted gradually as the sinkholes formed. So, like, slowly transitioning from surface dwellers to these
underground inhabitants.
It's like this really slow migration over generations.
As their world changed from light to dark, it's possible.
Wow. Another possibility is that life arrived more suddenly.
Swept in by floods or heavy rains, carrying seeds, spores, even small animals through those openings at the top.
Can you imagine being that little fish Just suddenly plunged into darkness. Yeah, that would be quite the shock.
Talk about a change of scenery.
Yeah.
And then there's also the possibility
that animals, like bats or birds, might have brought seeds or spores on their bodies or, in their droppings. So they become these accidental gardeners.
It's incredible how interconnected everything is. Even in these isolated worlds,
It is.
life finds a way to spread and diversify, even relying on chance encounters.
Exactly.
It just goes to show that there's still so much we don't know.
There is.
Every time we discover a new sinkhole, it's a chance to uncover new species.
New adaptations, new clues about the history of life.
It's like a whole new world is waiting to be explored.
You got it.
It makes you wonder what other secrets are out there, not just in these sinkholes, but all over the planet.
It's a good reminder that we're still just scratching the surface.
It really is. And that the journey of scientific discovery never really ends.
It doesn't.
There's always something new to learn, something new to discover, some new mystery to unravel. And maybe that's the biggest takeaway from all of this. These sinkholes, they remind us
to stay curious,
to keep exploring, to never lose that sense of wonder.
That makes our world so fascinating.
Well said.
And on that note, we want to thank all of you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of China's giant sinkholes.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. And if you have, let us know. Leave a comment. Share your thoughts. Tell us what other mysteries you'd like us to explore here on the All Sorts podcast.
We're always looking for new adventures.
To keep up with all the latest, make sure you subscribe to the All Sorts podcast on YouTube and follow us on X, Instagram, and Threads.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into something equally mind-blowing.
So until then, stay curious and keep exploring.
That's the spirit.
From all of us here at the All Sorts podcast. Thanks for listening.